So again, Darcy Telenko, field crop extension pathologist. This is, I guess, officially finished my 3rd year here at Purdue. I did not bring tar spot with me. We didn't have it in New York. It was here in 2015 and we've built up to it. I am going to pass around some leaves. If you have not seen it on your farm, I'm challenging you all to go look. I suspect it's in every field here in northern Indiana, if not across the state. It's on every plant in this plot, plot and in my plots later. I want you to look though, they're the black stromata coming out of the leaf here. This is a low infection, and I see if I keep losing, people keep stealing my high infection leaves. But are they back there? I gotta find them.
You've got some farmers who can help you.
Yeah, so I just want to show you low infection. This is what we're looking for to find it early on. If you're trying to confirm it, it's a raised black dot. Scratch at it, it's embedded. It's different from if you find insect frass. If you have a lot of bugs, you can wipe off the insect frass. This is embedded. You look closely at them. I want you to look at them. They're embedded. They're growing in that tissue. And the idea is this is low infection. We still may be able to do something about it if it's low enough in the corn plot. If we're to this level, it's too late on those leaves. We're never going to stop it at this point. This amount of infection is going to, probably in a week or so, this whole leaf will be blighted because we've had so much. It's consuming all that leaf material within there. But I just want you to look at this. This is here, so I pulled these leaves off this plot. So you can't scout from the truck. You got to get out and look at it. But if it's active in your field, it's there now, and you could probably find it on every plant here in northern Indiana. So I'm just going to pass some examples around of various infection levels. You can look at them and see there's some other diseases, but mainly tar spots are the one that wrap up. You can look at them, and then I'll start over here maybe. Sorry. So I did put out a handout here. We can go through that. I like having conversations, and there's a lot of talk about these tar spots, or what to do. So we can have that conversation, but I'll first start and go through what I got here, and then we can continue on, and then you guys can go to lunch. Hopefully it'll be ready in a half hour or so. So we do track not only tar spot, but southern corn rust, and we track southern corn rust nationally, because unlike tar spot, we start with a clean slate every year, which is good news on southern corn rust. The problem is, in the south, if they get bad, it blows up with our weather, hurricanes, and it could bring it in early. And that's what happened this season, is we had our first reports mid-July. We've had issues with it causing yield losses in southern Indiana, particularly in 2012 is what I'm told. So you can see the current map, and my date is wrong. I did update this yesterday. I just didn't change the date. That's what happens when I do it at 9 o'clock at night. So we can see that it's pretty much spread across the whole state. Even Michigan has its first couple reports, and they normally don't see it. It all depends where those spores landed. One little hot pocket, you could be scouting the field and you run into an orange area. The unique thing about southern corn rust is from spore landing to the next spores being dispersed, 6 days, 6 to 7 days. So there's that rapid cycle that can occur and cause a lot of issues if it gets in early enough in corn. So I just have an example of what our non-treated southern rust plots looked like last year in Vincennes. So you can see they're quite orange. We had about 15% disease on, and so when we rate disease, we rate the ear leaf for how much of the disease on the ear leaf, how much is it going to impact yield. We had about 15% southern rust consuming that ear leaf. We still didn't see significant yield benefit with the fungicides, but the fungicides will control southern rust. So there are fungicides available for that. They can probably be the same products for your gray leaf spot and tar spot as well. And if you go to my website, you probably can search, there's fungicide efficacy tables that you can cross-reference the various diseases to determine what product you may want to use. So we're tracking southern rust. If you haven't found it, or if you find it and you want it confirmed, you can send a sample into the plant pest diagnostic lab. The Indiana Corn Marketing Council did support our samples. So all corn ear leaves, tar spot, southern rust, send them in. We'll cover the cost because we really want to get an idea of where the diseases are and how active they are in the state. As for tar spot, you can see the map that I updated it yesterday. All those counties that are now gray or yellow, the gray means we found it previous years. So in 2020, we found it in all but 14 counties. And my team actually got into all 92 counties and we jump out of the truck and try to get 2 fields at opposite ends of the counties to see if we can find it. I give myself 15 minutes. If I can't find it and I don't get shot, I'm saying that field is, not going to have tar spot in it. But, as you can see, I suspect we probably, if I looked hard enough, it was a random sample of what we sampled. But you can see we found it across the state. Previous years, because in addition, when you take the sample, I also rate how easy I can find it, how many plants have the disease. That's the incidence. And I also rate the severity. How severe is the disease on the ear leaf? And we take that and I combine them and I do an index. And so central and southern Indiana, it's been really low. It's hard to find. It's a needle in the haystack. I'm looking for the one stromata. Hard to find. Northern Indiana, much easier to find after 2018. It's in every field around here probably. It just depends how soon it kicked up. And it is important to know the history. If you have it this year and you're building up inoculum and we have those in conducive environmental conditions to cause the disease, then we may need to be worrying about it in the future. So that's what's important to understand. Is it on your farm? Is it going to be a problem in the future if it doesn't cause a problem this season? So you can see the yellow or the orange is telling me I've gotten an active image of tar spot. So if you want to email me and you tell me your county, I will turn a county positive now after we've gotten time to learn about it. I can tell from the image usually, unless it's not a clear image, that it's tar spot. So these are the counties I've gotten samples from, or my team's gotten samples from. I'm sure, I think it's Jeff, what county is that? Stark. I'm sure it's in Stark. I just haven't had a sample or an image come in from that county. I suspect all of northern Indiana should be orange at this point in time. The unique thing this season is compared to the last 2 years when we've been researching it, is July was wet. Previous 2 years, July has been dry. Dry slows down tar spot. It requires a long period of leaf wetness for those spores to be released and infect the crop canopy. We had a wet July. The disease kicked off early this season. So I wasn't here in 2018. I didn't start till August, so I don't have Indiana's first reports of tar spot for that year. I suspect we have a similar season as we had in 2018 when we first had problems with it. But we kicked it up, so early July was our first finds here in Porter and our plots up in northern, here in this county. I've gotten samples in 3 weeks ago from Gibson County, and I don't know if you know where that is, but that's southern Indiana. I was expecting it to be one of those leaves with a few spots on it, and it was a blighted leaf with a lot of spots. So that surprised me, but it also told me that the conditions were conducive, that even if the disease was there lightly from previous seasons, it was enough to kick it up this season and cause a problem in those fields. So I'm going to have pockets that are going to appear across the state, I think, this year with tar spot, especially if they had all that July rain. There's still a swath in central Indiana that's been dry. I'm not worried about dry ground. It's the areas that have gotten the rain and the right moisture conditions. It's here where we have lake effect weather and late morning dews. We have enough moisture that it can kick this disease up. Again, we're still 3 years in of looking at it. The first things we tried to look at, how effective are our fungicides and what's the timing on those. So we started with the basics. Gray leaf spot, we go out at VTR1. That seems to have worked in those dry years, VTR1, and then last year we pushed it R2 was our best timing because the disease didn't start till later. And the idea is this disease moves in late and it's gonna cause the corn to dry down faster. You want it to stay green as long as possible, and this is where it rapidly takes off. And we're at this point now. In a couple weeks, I suspect some of these plants are going to be blighted because the disease is just ramping up in those leaves. So most of our products are very efficacious against it, but this disease will show you when their window of activity is run out. So generally 2 to 3 weeks. We have a few products that are a little longer, but it's going to, in our plots, we can see it. I can tell you that it kicks right back up. As long as there's green tissue to infect, it's going to take off again if the fungicide activities run out. And so that's what we've been trying to time is the best timing. We want to put the fungicide down. I generally only want you to put one out if we're going to do it. We want to time it, especially for chasing this disease, optimally for this disease. The problem this season is it came in early, right? And so our first attacks, probably V8, V10, were when the fungicides went out. So 3 weeks later, we're not going to make it till black layer. So the question is, do I go again? And that's the question I've been getting for 2 weeks now.
What's your answer?
My answer is, I don't know. No, my answer is I haven't had the data to say yes. Where I've put it twice, we were looking earlier. I think last year we had it hit it twice. And we didn't get the return on the investment for that yield protection, okay? And so that's where I stand. But I didn't have the moisture conditions that I have this season. So we know the disease is there earlier, and we got to get ahead of it. Because I know my R4 and R5 timings, when I put them out, it's too late. The disease curve continues to be the same with those timings. So our answer now, and there'll probably be an article for the multiple states that we've put out, is if you're not to doe and you still got 3-4 weeks of protection, you want that upper canopy to stay green, and you got a hot field, and you know you have a history, it may be worth the investment to protect. But if you do it, I'm asking you to put a strip in there and check it to see that it worked. Because I can't tell you if it worked or not if you sprayed everything. You know, if you got the yield you wanted, I don't know if the fungicide was beneficial or not, right? Hopefully after this season, we have multiple timings going out. My plots are planted late. We're at R2. We're spraying weekly for different things. I'll have some answers hopefully this winter. But my suggestion to try to save that good crop that we got going is if you're still at R3, if you're still at milk, and you got tar spot and you can find it in the lower canopy and the upper canopy is still green, it might be worth protecting if you can get a plane and product too. So there's lots of ifs. If you're getting in the field and you have this amount of disease, that bright green picture, and that's up in the upper canopy, we're done. We're never going to catch up. It takes at least 2 weeks for those stromata to appear from what we know so far. So we don't see what's being infected today, and that's ahead of, if we put a fungicide down, that infection's still going to move on. So we're still going to have those pop through. And so that's why I'm saying if we're already to this 5% level, let's just save the money and hope that it slows down and we'll get what we can out of the corn. Our fungicide trials, generally a one-time fungicide, I'm getting about 12 to 30. I've had a range of bushel protection. So it does protect that and does pay, but you need to know that the disease is there and going to be a problem to make that informed decision. I don't like hearing everybody's going to spray everything. I want you to make an informed decision to protect that fungicide. And the reason for that, as I'm going to switch to soybeans, is we do have fungicide resistance here in Indiana for frog eye leaf spot in soybeans. So we have the KOIs, the strobilurins. We do have detected populations. There was 4 counties when I started that were confirmed. We've done more intensive sampling. We've confirmed it now in 32 counties. So that's that map here. It does indicate, so my student, she had over 800 isolates from leaves, and she looked at them, and it's just a 1 gene switch, a 1 codon switch that confers resistance to the QOIs. So she was able to look at them, grow them out, run the molecular analysis. So we have percentages. So some of the counties, all the samples we got from that county were QI resistance. Some half were and half were not. Some fields, we had QI 1 year resistant population. We went back and sampled the next year. It's not. So there's still a mixed population out there, which is good news. But it also means we need to be cognizant of our fungicides. We need to continue to protect our fungicides. Field crops side of things, we haven't worried about fungicide resistance. I worked in vegetable crops for many years. We have issues all the time because, downy mildew, late blight. We spray them every 7 days. We're selecting them. Well, if we continue to spray the same products over and over on the fields, we're going to continue to select those pathogens as well to have resistance. So we have done a sample, and I have colleagues that are looking at gray leaf spot in corn, would be a Cercospora species, so that one's more likely for resistance to develop. So we're looking for them. The Phylocora, the new tar spot pathogen, I can't culture it as easily, so it's going to be much harder for me to tell you whether we have fungicide resistance yet. But we just need to be cognizant that we can select for resistance in our pathogens as well as our weeds and everything else. So we want to protect these products, make an informed decision on whether you need to put something out or not. Ideally, if you can have resistance, I would start with that. So if you have disease-resistant package in your hybrid or variety, we start ahead of the game. We may not need the additional fungicide input. Unfortunately for tar spot, we're starting at ground zero on trying to get our hybrids with resistant packages. There's some coming along. We have a variety trial with Michigan out there at our site. I have 700 plots to rate for that, single rows, to try to look for tar spot, to try to identify genes for resistant. So we're working on it. It just takes time to move what we identify into well-known hybrids with good yield back packages. So, but we're trying to work on the various angles for this disease. Again, we talk about it's the weather. The weather conditions are going to dictate how bad tar spot ends up this season. Those July rains pushed us, and they started it off, and it's ramping up and going to continue to spread throughout northern Indiana, and it's spreading nationally as well. Yes.
So what kind of weather from here on out would be conducive to slow it down?
Hot, dry. And you want rain though, so we want rain, but I need dry. More than hot, I need dry conditions to slow it down. But if it's already in there, it's going to continue to develop within that
slow
crop.
down.
It should slow it down if it's hot and dry. Well, dry. I keep saying hot, but I think hot and wet, and it continues to blow. We need dry conditions to slow it down. I think but it's to the point of making sure you know it's there.
So the spores, do they overwinter? Like if you rotate the soybeans, are they there for 2 years?
I don't have the longevity of overwintering yet. We're still working on really good tools to try to monitor and determine the amount of population. We did take debris from fields, and we analyzed them working with Michigan and Wisconsin and Illinois, and we confirmed that those spores are surviving in the debris. So those black stromata, if they're closed, I think they're providing an overwintering ability. I don't know how long. I worked on white mold was what I worked my PhD on. So the big sclerotia, they're strong, they last 10 years of the soil. I don't think we're there yet, but I think these structures provide at least multiple years of survival. The question of tillage and no-till, I've seen it across the board right now in fields. Rotation, not rotation. I've been in fields where I knew this field was soybeans last year, full tillage. There was no debris. It had to have been in the 2017 corn. Just a little bit even, and maybe not even detectable level that you would have noted, but just enough that it survived. And then in 2019, we had the right conditions, and that stromata, they forcibly eject the spores, and they've looked at that 250 feet they can eject those spores. So we get that spore release, and that whole under canopy could be infected. So that's why some weeks when we start scouting, I'm finding one. The initial, we found one and we turned a county and it was hard to find. And then I've sent students back to say, okay, see if you can find it. And they come back and they send me a picture and there's hundreds. Like there's a rapid ramp up and it's growing within that leaf tissue. So they're connected too, I think. Yep.
That corn right there, if you don't have it at that stage right there, can it still really damage that crop right there?
It has the potential for not to black layer yet. It might blight it faster, but we're too late to spray. We're at almost a dent. So I'm not going to tell you to spray, but I'm going to have you monitor it because the farm may come to me in 2 weeks and say, Darcy, we didn't see it yesterday.
I've had it other years, that, really in fields, but it was earlier. And my corn is like that or further along, and I haven't seen any of it this year.
Well, I'd say go look. It's there now. And they may not, I wasn't out here scouting this field last week. But when they sent me up here and I went to go, okay, maybe and I was like, oh my gosh, guys, and they hadn't seen it. So it just turned on here at this farm. This may be far enough along where we may not see yield effects. But if it goes down 2 weeks now, if it's blighted, then we've lost some of that weight, right, on that last push. So there is that potential, but it's already the pathogens are already infected. But these are what we're learning in 3 years.
We've been scouting all year long for tar spot, so we didn't have any. So then your deal about not spraying everything, so we're going to save our money straight. So just now, it's like you said, go look because it's there. Because now within the last week, all of our fields are showing it. But we're in the R6, so we're going like.
Then I think you saved it. I think we're at that point. We're going to make it and hopefully not have too much yield effect. It's my corn that's at we're just at R2 over there, and it's ramping up the same. So late planted corn, long season, those are the hybrids we need to be watching because it's going to go after any green tissue. So I think you're okay, but This is one, and we still don't have the answers on when do we trigger, right? When do we find it? What stage do we trigger? What we're not. We're trying to do these timings, but what we're saying based on the knowledge of other disease management and fungicide use, R4 and R5 fungicide use is just not pay for any of the diseases at that point in time. I may change my tune after I finish the season, and if you want to, if you got high yielding corn, and you just say I want to sleep better at night, then leave a strip and really leave some blanks so you can see, did it save you on that return?
The Delero Complete, is that something that you're...
It's one of the, we have it out here, it's one of the products that it works. If you look at our efficacy, they're all grouped together. There's a couple that have dropped a little lower. If you go in mixed modes of action, they're generally going to help maintain it. But again, understand its placement of that window, and if we're outside the window, it might take off again.